Thanks for choosing GoldSeek.com radio as a trusted business and investing news source. It's just a pleasure to have Bill Murphy back. It's Thursday, January 20th. Welcome back, Mr. Bill Murphy.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me.
You know, you've been at this game now for close to 20 years, maybe longer.
I'll make that 23 and a half.
If you told me any of the headlines we're reading today would be on the news in early New Year, I'd have told you gold had been north of 3,000 and silver around 50 to 100. But we don't see that yet.
That's what gets me so mad all the time. Last year mentally was the toughest year I've ever had in my life because I just had to report every day on what was going on. And the essence of it was they had bombs away in the morning almost every single day last year in the gold and silver markets. And you're absolutely correct. I mean, you had the most bullish fundamentals last year of all time for gold and silver, and they both went down. As you say, it's just been farcical. It has to do with what I call and covered for all those years, the gold cartel, the price suppression scheme, and they went bananas last year. They did it with these paper raids in the morning, and it weakened the physical markets terribly. And investors, the shares have been awful. I mean, people quitting left and right because everything else was going up and gold and silver were going down. Maybe they've hit the wall now. We certainly had a good streak, especially finally in what I call pitiful silver, which should be 50 to 100. And I'm hoping the excitement lasts.
Exactly. Well, you know, Bill Murphy, as I guess what you might call a boring middle-aged dad, you know, my weekly trips to the local grocery store have been a little unsettling. I mean, in my 52 years, Bill Murphy, I've never seen shelves bare all the way back. We have a busy grocery store, and they're stock clerks. It seems like they're always busy. And I'm wondering, is this really just supply issues due to bad weather in the Midwest?
Well, I had a great food service for the last 6 years called Two Sisters, and just wonderful people, great food, and they bought me, 4 meals delivered to me during the week and so on, and they shut down on Christmas because they couldn't find the right worker, and everything was blowing up like you're talking about. It is scary. I mean, I had my first cold, I think. I don't think it was COVID. I can't get a test, so what do I know? In 15 years. And, of course, everyone's wondering what the deal is out there, and I'm one of them. And but the first time, and I'm an older guy now, I was really concerned. Geez, I don't want to get really sick and go to the hospital and get shoved around, and it's a mess.
I'm reading from certain sources in the trucking industry who say that there's a lot of issue bringing goods into the U.S. at our borders, and that much of what we're reading in the media is incorrect. They say they've never seen anything like it in decades, and they can't transfer out the unvaccinated truck drivers the way they were expecting. And, of course, I'm also reading rumors, now this is just rumor, that our largest trading partner may be shutting down all of its ports, which we're heavily dependent on for our imports. There's also talk that, as you may know, most of our produce in the U.S. is produced primarily in California, and trucks are having a difficult time. I have a trucker in my family who regularly makes East Coast to West Coast trips. So what do you think? I mean, is this emblematic of something more sinister?
Nothing could be more sinister than what they've done to the gold and silver markets, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
We've lived long enough to remember the 70s and the inflation there. We've never really experienced runaway hyperinflation in the U.S., at least not for 150 years. We might get caught off guard, even though our policymakers, they're trained as economists, so they know about Weimar, they know about Zimbabwe, they know about South America, and much of what's happened in Venezuela and Argentina in the last few decades. But they may not expect it here. Even though there's a lot of talk about raising rates, we haven't seen that. I mean, look at U.S. equities. Do you think that some of those funds might spill into precious metals?
Yes, sir. I mean, it's the whole thing is, as you've heard me say, the whole thing's been a farce. I mean, I thought silver was going to head towards 100 years ago. I couldn't have been wrong in what they've done, thanks to J.P. Morgan and allies. And the question is whether they're hitting the wall. Gold and silver are the cheapest assets in the world by far. I mean, there's nothing close to it. And the question is whether they've run out of enough physical supply, which I think they've finally done in silver. A fellow named Andy Sheckman from Miles Franklin has been terrific in exposing the physical tightness issue, which hasn't been a thing for months. I couldn't figure it out. But the way it traded on Tuesday and then following through today, and despite their attack on gold, it's just making new highs. I finally think that's what you're talking about can be the surprise investment of the year, which means gold led by silver with a ratio of 75 to 1. It can go drop to 50, 40 to 1, and it can go bananas and just stun people because of what they've done, and nobody seems to get it out there.
Many of these smaller markets seem to just showing signs of tight supply and escalating prices, and we just see that across the board. Shortages almost everywhere. Of course, they're claiming, the powers that be are claiming, and officials and policymakers are claiming this is just due to a temporary glitch in supply. But many folks I've talked to, including Egon von Greyert in Europe, seem to think there's much bigger issues here at play. The typical bellwethers of higher prices and inflation seem to be stubbornly fixed. That sends off red flags for me immediately.
Well, if I didn't know they were rigged, I wouldn't be in gold and silver for anything. Every other most commodities have all made highs, and that's the headline talk all the time. And inflation, and look how big the inflation is, and they got this problem, and this market's making high, and oil's above $87 per barrel today. And look at gold; it's down $50 in a year. Silver's down $4. You got to be kidding me! Now, can that change, and dramatically so? That's what I'm rooting for. But I've been expecting this for a while. And again, it goes back to one of the bad guys have run out of enough physical supply to facilitate their paper raids, which they orchestrated almost every day last year.
If you might recall, Mr. Nick Barishev, head of one of the largest gold depositories in the world, you know, he penned that must-read tome, $10,000 Gold. I have 2 copies on my desk here. Makes a really great case for the inevitability of just hockey stick-like gains in the precious metals when he talks about pension funds and major players in the financial industry have less than half of 1% exposure to gold and silver and related miners. Traditional metrics are minimum of 5 to 15%. Some type of insurance against a house fire over your financial asset. Deep pockets anywhere from $4 to $40 billion that could come flooding in at any moment, at any time. And today we know how liquid things are and how quickly the tide can change.
Chris, if I may, you're absolutely correct. We saw the sign of that with silver going out, taking off out of nowhere on Tuesday, and gold surging yesterday, and they can go bonkers, and people won't get it. And the reason that everyone can't wait to get out. That's what happened last year. I know it killed my business. It's just because, you see the same things every day, and everything else is going up, and we go no place. Now, again, they're not going away. The open interest is going way up again in gold. The question is whether, again, I repeat myself, but if they're running out of physical supply. That may be the case in silver, which is acting like it hasn't in a long time since the silver squeeze. And gold is, they're trying to keep it under control, but it can explode out of nowhere, and there's not many commentary on it. And if I may, I'll finish up. Unusually this week and at the end of last week, a lot of the major banks all came out and started becoming gold bears. It was kind of bizarre in a way. $1,600 gold was mentioned by more than one of these banks, and they all came out at the same time. So what are they afraid of?
A major bank just before Bitcoin collapsed was calling for $100,000 to $150,000 Bitcoin. Probably one of the same banks, investment banks, brokerages that you're referring to. So watch what they do and ignore what they say. I think, it's looking like Vladimir Putin, the head of Russia, I guess lifelong czar now, is the precious metals' best friend. Gone from saber rattling with Ukraine to now war games, as we see in the major headlines. The Central Bank of Russia is now one of the few stockpilers of epic amounts of AG, silver, hauling 70-pound bars into their central banks.
Well, it's interesting. If I may, my colleague Chris Powell was just in touch with Andrei Bykov, one of the top people in Russia, who came to Gada's conference in 2005, way up in Dawson City. And the Russians and Chinese know what Gada knows and know how artificially low they are and what's coming. And they've known it for a while. So it doesn't surprise me at all that they wouldn't be loading up, especially on silver, which is the cheapest asset in the world, and know that it can go bananas at any time.
Right. I mean, heaven forbid it actually is recognized again as a monetary metal.
The past few weeks, I've had more commentary come my way I know my brother Tim was in the business with Scottsdale Bullion and Coin, and people calling up to sell gold and their silver to buy cryptos. That was just about the bottom of where silver was.
And we'd like for people to contact you, stay in touch with you, and of course support everything you're working on at La Metropole Cafe, and of course Gada.org. Maybe you can share some contact information, let them know what you're up to.
Well, Chris Powell does a great job, and www.gada.org and has a free service, and you can sign up there, and people can sign up for a 2-week free trial to my site, La Metropole Cafe. Been at it a long time, and as I mentioned, last year was pretty tough, but the way we're going now, it looks like we're finally going to have some serious excitement that's going to shock people.
Very good. Well, we're so glad that you're feeling better. We hope you stay active and well, because we need you here at GoldSeek.com. Bill Murphy.
Thanks, Chris. Take care, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks.